How you doing, Ellen?
I'm good. Good morning. How are
Good.
you?
Okay. Getting
Like
ready for a big.
nice to
Yeah.
see your face.
Yeah. Thursdays are usually my day off, so I'm usually coming from exercising at this time, but had a little early morning. So,
Oh, gotcha.
yeah. Hey guys, good morning. Good morning. Hi,
Well,
Rosie.
I exercised for the first time in months this morning. It was so nice. I went for a walk for like a half an hour.
I was noticing you look much better.
Thank you.
You always look good, but especially good this morning. A glow
Ah,
in honor of Hanukkah.
There you go.
It's true. We should definitely.
Then we should all go get our menorahs and share what they look like because they're so much fun.
Ours unfortunately is too big to bring into the house right now, so it's
Is it out on their front yard
no, it's in front of the shul.
in front of the shul?
Jen
Oh, I can't
Schmitz.
wait to use mine. It's fun.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Well, we can do a share next week.
We have a new menorah that I bought Julie at Sababa, except she explained to me that that's not a menorah that we use. That's just a menorah we look at because it's art and we do not put candles on the very cool. And I'm like, it's a menorah. She's like, yeah, I know. Don't ever light a candle in this menorah. I'm like, okay, all
Greg,
good.
my daughter brought me back a Shabbat set of glass candlesticks from Israel when she went on Birthright. And I was so excited and we used them the first week. Well, apparently they were decorative art too. And when the candle got into the glass, it got hot and the glass cracked.
Oh.
There was no notice on there that said, you're not supposed to use these. They're for decoration only. I'm like, they're Shabbat candlesticks. I'm going to use them, right? So we glued it back together and stuck it in the display. So we could keep them anyway. But yeah, some of them you're not supposed to use. I didn't know that.
That would not have occurred to me.
Me either, not in a million years. I
Well,
thought,
I'm
oh,
excited because we got a new menorah for our new building. And so I'm excited to see it up and going this evening.
Oh, that'll be fun.
And the weather's cooperating for everybody because it's going to be gorgeous tonight and tomorrow, particularly, right?
Let me tell you, you are warmer in St. Louis right now than we are in Florida. That's all I'm going to say.
Wow.
Although we're not feeling sorry for you.
I know. Next week, I'm going to do this call sitting outside. And then you'll see.
There we
It's going to be 52 and sunny next Friday. Next Thursday it says.
Nice. All right. Well, we will dispense with the sorry, not sorry about it being colder in Florida than it is here, and get rolling. So everybody get on with their day. Thank you all for joining this morning. Not a lot for me other than, if you're in the area of the campus, there's activity going on. Utility trenching is happening. I can see Scott nodding. Progress is being made, and things are moving along on the building. Get the site ready, and we are still on track. Early out, of course, to say we're still opening in June of 22, which I think is very, very reasonable, and so that is all good news. And we've launched. I know the museum's launched a Friends campaign, and so we're trying to close the gap on that. Which I think is down to 2.3 million. So better to phrase it as only 2.3 left versus at 18.7 or whatever it is. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for me.
Greg, you forgot to mention the plethora of art which has been added to the campus as well. If you guys are looking for unique and interesting art, you can drive through the campus, particularly the area between the J and Covenant and the Federation, and there is a lot of new artwork that has gone up recently. Statues, but not statues. What do we call them?
Vertical metal sculptures predominantly that were actually rescued, as I understand it, that were in a state of decay and were purchased by a generous benefactor and rehabbed into good condition and are being planted, so to speak, all around the community campus. So you can do an art tour. If you're looking for something to do in COVID, come do an art tour on the Jewish community campus. Maybe we'll get a docent for that.
Outdoors.
Other than that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Brian unless anybody's got any questions for me.
So
And
we're going to go to David in a second, but I just wanted to just let people know that at the Federation, we had a board meeting yesterday. We approved our budget for next year, which is great and an accomplishment, and we should all be happy. And there were some cuts that we had to make. I wanted to share that one of the things that the board did was we have to make some cuts, which are fine and won't impact things greatly. But one of the areas that we had originally proposed cutting was professional development. And the board said, we're okay with everything, but you have to add back in professional development. And I think that it's a statement, and I want to share it with all of you about, I think the role of education, certainly in our people, in our community, but that our board stepped up and recognized that. I want to also maybe point out, through no small part of JPRO, which we have one of the largest Jewish professional networks in the country and in the world in this community, which focuses on professional development. I'd like to think that it's in part due to the work that Marcy's been doing for years and other things as well. But if I'm going to offer up Greg, if any of you need someone to speak to your board or your chair or whatever about the importance of professional development, I think that our board made a really strong statement, and I think it's worth sharing with others. Rabbi Rose was in that meeting and made a statement about it as well. It is important. It's really important that we recognize each of us and the people that work with us for the outstanding work that's gone on this past year, and a really challenging time for everybody. And despite all of that, things continue to move forward, and we all continue to do really important work in the community. And it's only because of the staff. We are our staff in a lot of cases. So I applaud our board for recognizing that and making a strong statement about it. And I hope that you guys find the same kind of support as well. I see Greg's. So David Witten, you're here. And is Holly on the call? She is.
I am here.
Yeah, there's all-
Oh, she is here. Okay, so David,
am.
I know you can address just what's going on in general, and then Holly, you had a couple of specific questions, one of which David can address.
Thanks.
I think part of one David can address. We'll
Right.
see. So just so everybody's got some context, so the legislative session is going to start in January, but pre-filing of bills started on December 1st. Many of you are aware of that. We're working through our tracking list now. We've sent, the first 450 bills. We've tried to pick and choose bills that seem to have an impact on some section of the community, whether that's defense agencies or children in elderly services or whomever, and start kind of funneling those issues to folks as they go through. We should be doing a series of conversations with everybody and kind of updates and things like that that'll start cooking. Right now, we've got over 600 bills that have been filed in the legislature. I think based on my reading of those bills, and Lynn Whittle, I don't know if Lynn is on the call or not, but she's got some funny responses to some of them. But it might be better for the legislature to spend less time in Jefferson City than more time, but we'll kind of see where we're at this point. So we will be having lots of conversations, and I want everybody to know that if there are questions about anything in Jefferson City that we can try and illuminate, please don't hesitate to email or send a note over. It's never an inconvenience for us to provide whatever insight we can provide or get you information that we can get you. So that's happening now in earnest. I think the legislature is going to be chopped down to, a half of what it would normally do during a session because of the amount of time they're probably going to have. They're going to be spending a tremendous amount of time on the budget next year because of the uncertainty. There's going to be a ton of time being spent on redistricting because that's what happens every 10 years. And then there's going to be a whole slew of other issues that are out there. So that's kind of happening right now, and the show's going to go on as we move forward. The federal funding package, there's a lot going on that. 3 or 4 weeks ago, I would have said, hey, this thing's dead. When the Biden administration takes office, then we'll see another package. But it looks like all the players are starting to coalesce around a package. There's a $908 billion proposal that's out there. It was structured by the moderates, the Joe Manchins on the Democrat side, as well as some of the moderate Republicans have all kind of come together, the Romneys, and said, we do think we need a package. The Federal Reserve has been really, really helpful in pushing, as is the Treasury Department, for the need for a package. And it looks like, at least on the Republican side, the Republican Senate views the passage of a relief package is pretty important to the Georgia election, which is creating some traction on that. And so what we see right now is the potential to have a fairly significant bill put forward next week in combination with an extension of the federal funding through September 30th. And that'll include things like $300 a week for enhanced unemployment benefits, which will be really important for states. It is likely to include about $80 billion in funding for education. It will include money for vaccine administration. It will include money for contact tracing. It's likely to include money for enhanced food stamp benefits and SNAP benefits in states. It will likely include 10 to 15 billion for additional childcare subsidies to increase the amount of money flowing into daycares, which I think will be quite helpful. The two sticking points that are there right now are COVID liability, which is what Senator McConnell and the Republicans in the Senate want, and then $160 billion in state and local aid. Those two issues are the two issues they're still negotiating. However, both of those issues are in with placeholders, and there is consensus that they're getting there. You may have heard Senator McConnell earlier this week said, let's just pass a bill without COVID liability and the $160 billion. There were a whole bunch of people that kind of panicked about that. And I started getting emails from clients. And so I reached out to a person that I trust a lot in DC and said, what's the deal here? And his comment was, this is a negotiating ploy. There's no question that if they get a package done, it's going to include both of those things. And that seems to be the case. The White House weighed in yesterday with another proposal that actually included, I think, $600 checks to individuals and no $300. But the White House proposal actually included both COVID liability and $160 billion in for state and local aid. So that looks like it's baking together. I give it kind of a 60-40. If that money comes in, that's roughly a $3 billion number for the state of Missouri alone. It's probably a little higher than that. So that'll be extremely meaningful as we start doing the budget for next year. So that's happening. The other thing that I think is important to notate, a lot of people on this call have a big interest in early childhood, whether that's daycare or education or other aspects of that. I think the governor is going to move forward with a proposal to do an Office of Early Childhood in the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It's going to be basically a 0 to 5 conversation building on some grant money that they've received. Children's Trust Fund and other groups have been very involved in this with the governor's office. So I think that could be probably the most meaningful reform that comes into the state legislature this year, which could be really big. I mean, this could be universal pre-K, things of that nature. So this would be one of the first big ideas, I think, to see in Missouri in a very long time. So those are just kind of some pieces in a nutshell for what we have coming up. There was a question, Holly, I think your question was, you had two questions, one related to EIDL, and that we're going to leave that to Don, who I don't think is on the call right now, but that may be an issue you need to really talk to your accountant on, because those are going to get very persnickety. But just, to let you know, we have reached back out to Jeff Sparks, has been incredibly helpful, great member of the community. He was heavily involved in doing seminars and workshops for folks all through the PPP program. Any one of these bills is going to involve another PPP round, it looks like, of $3 billion. So we're talking now, okay, do we need to have another workshop to have a conversation about extended PPP? Some of the forgiveness issues that are coming in now, we're starting to see more requests for information. There's a lot more scrutiny being placed on the program. And so, it might be timely to have another conversation, but I think your question was so particular that we're a little nervous about trying to give you any kind of feedback to that, because I'm not sure we're qualified to do that. Second question you had was around opening back up, if you will, about vaccine. And that's going to be, so that is a clear answer. That's up to local communities. So Sam Page in St. Louis County is going to have a lot of say over what kind of ordinances happen. I will say the legislature's got no less than 10 or 12 proposals to limit the ability of the county executive or the county commission or the public health departments to enact ordinances in relation to emergencies. Some of them are pretty mild, you can't leave restaurants open and close down religious services, stuff like that. That very, very narrow, and some of them are very broad, saying you can't do anything for more than 7 days unless you get the permission of the General Assembly. So they run the gamut in terms of the size. But I think for the purposes of the next 3 months, where there won't be any legislation affecting this, it's going to be up to these different commissions on what they're going to do. We work a lot with Pfizer as one of our clients, and so we have a little bit of a view into what they're doing and what's happening with the vaccine. What we're hearing from our friends in the state government as well as on the federal side is, as we start approaching 50 and 60% vaccination, or people that have gotten the illness and are kind of naturally immune, we're going to start seeing herd immunity. And what's going to happen then is, it's going to be harder for the disease to spread. And so my guess is that by March, we're going to see a very large percentage of folks vaccinated. So the best guess that folks are coming out with is the general public is going to have vaccines available in March to them. So people like me, I don't have any special job that qualifies me for it. I'm not that important. Nobody cares that much. So I fit into the class 15D. And so I'm going to probably be able to get inoculated sometime March, April, which means I'm going to have immunity sometime in June. And so I think in June, we're going to see life return to normal in a pretty significant way, but it'll be up to the county exec on what he chooses to do. Brian, that's what I've got. I'm happy to answer questions. I apologize for taking so much time up.
No, it's always really helpful and useful. Yeah, Jen, did you have a question?
Well, I saw an article about some companies are requiring their employees to take the vaccination, and I was just concerned about that because I don't know if that makes sense. And what's the recommendation as an employer in this case?
Well, I'm not sure I can make a recommendation as an employer, but I can tell you what we're hearing in the field. So we represent some energy interests. And so that's been a real conversation across utilities. Are they going to make the folks that work on gas lines, for example, who are essential employees, are they going to require the vaccination? I can tell you I work with BJC and Cox Health Systems. None of those groups are requiring people to get a vaccination. The other distinction we've been hearing is this emergency use permit. People are very nervous about requiring a vaccination when the vaccination is under emergency use permit. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal this morning with the University of Cincinnati health guy, whoever's in charge of the pandemic there. And he talked a lot about that they are not requiring people to get the vaccine because they're under emergency use permit. Whereas in a hospital, you do have to get a flu vaccine if you're a nurse or you're a doctor, because it's not. So I can tell you that's what folks are doing. I have not heard of any organization yet, large organization, that is going to require their employees to get the vaccine.
I'm wondering, is there an attorney, someone that would be good to bring into this group that we could talk to about this? Because I know it's a question that's come up on our end as well.
Maybe. Wait, where'd Brian go?
Oh, I'm
Sorry, you disappeared on my. Let me put my readers on so I can see my screen. Maybe we should ask Bert if he has time to talk about this.
Sure.
Okay.
Hey, David.
One of our board members is a labor and employment lawyer.
David, a quick question on the PPP. I'm assuming this new round, and I could be incorrect, is for people that did not get it the first time around. Is that correct?
We
Or
don't-
can you apply again? Or do we even know?
Well, so they're working through it. The feedback we've got, at least preliminarily, Ellen, is that you can apply for it again. This round is going to require you to show the loss. So you might recall in reading some of the articles that have been out over the last 2 to 3 weeks, there have been the U.S. Treasury sent a forgiveness letter out to people that got loans over, I think, $1 million, asking them to demonstrate that they had a revenue loss, which was not part of the initial, the initial PPP was you have to be concerned you're going to have a loss in revenue, not that you actually had one. So, there's all this kind of wringing of hands about moving the goalposts and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, all of the loans have been put forward out. And, now we're hearing nothing on that, which is kind of interesting. You would have thought this would have been a big splash. It's all out there. Wall Street Journal's got it, New York Times. So we do believe that if you have already received a PPP loan right now, you can reapply for an additional loan. However, I think the requirements are going to be much more stringent.
Thank you.
Other questions or concerns that people have, things that they're wondering about? Betsy, did you want to ask something?
I did. I always do, Brian.
Please.
And I don't know if I know you're not a physician, but I keep reading about how many people are going to refuse to take the vaccine. And I wondered, do we have any information about the percentage that need to have it for it to give, safety out in the world? Or like, I'm sure Missouri won't be legislating to mandate it anytime soon. But
And I'm not a doctor, but this is pretty clear. The experts have been really clear about this. Herd immunity doesn't even start being discussed until 50%, right? And by the way, 50% is not necessarily just vaccinated, right? I have COVID right now. So I'm fine. Thank God, everything is fine. My family, it's run through my family. We've been on quarantine for like 17 days now, a rolling quarantine. So I'm going to be immune for a series of months, right? Because I have the antibodies, I'm going to be fine. And so I think, the 50% number really refers to people that can't catch it. And so at that point, what happens is it just starts burning out. So if somebody in your circle gets it, the transmission rate is under 1, so it burns itself out. At 70%, most of the experts are saying that's when we say there's herd immunity, and then at 90%, that's when we start getting into kind of the polio world where we've eradicated the disease. And so, you're going to hear all these kind of benchmarks being discussed. But right now, the prediction is that 25 to 30% of US citizens by the end of the year will have had COVID. Most of them won't know that they had it, like half of them won't know they had it. And then, a lot of those folks are going to get vaccines. Like I'm going to get the vaccine, but, obviously in April. But, as the vaccine gets rolled out, the thought is by June, there'll be enough people vaccinated in the United States to have some herd immunity. It's not going to be full like it is, but you don't have to, there is no medical degree on this one anymore. It's pretty widely out there.
And then if the new administration requires masking, as has been indicated, does Missouri have to comply then?
There's almost no way that the Biden administration is going to require a mask mandate across the country. What we think they're going to do is require a mask mandate in any federal building or any federal. So it is a really sticky conversation on the 10th Amendment, whether or not the Biden administration, the federal administration has the ability to tell a state you have to do that. So one, I don't think we're going to see a mask mandate in the state of Missouri. There is, technically you're supposed to wear a mask when you walk into a state or federal building. So like if you walk into the Truman Building in Jeff City, where I work, I don't work in the Truman Building, but if you go in there to get your license plates or whatever, there's the sign up that says you got to wear a mask, you got to get your temperature taken when you come in here, the whole deal. I would expect that to be the conversation. There's almost zero likelihood that, we'll see a Biden administration try and enforce it. a mask mandate. The other reason, even on a practical level, they wouldn't do that is they're not going to want to force a showdown with states. You know, what are you going to do? Send in the National Guard to enforce a mask mandate, you know, in Arkansas or in Texas? I mean, that is not going to happen. And so I think that the good news for the Biden administration is by the time they take office on January 20th, we're going to be 2.5 months, 3 months away from most people being able to get the vaccine. So like timing is going to work out pretty well for them.
Excellent. Anything else?
Anything else in general? David, thank you as always. Does
Yeah.
anybody have anything that they wanted to just bring up, talk about, or seeing out there, concerned about? Well, okay.
All right then.
Happy Hanukkah. We started that way.
Happy Hanukkah.
Have a happy Hanukkah, everybody. I hope it warms up in Florida, Ellen. We really don't want to see you suffer, you know, because I know it's
Oh.
tough for all of us.
That's it. Next week I'm driving to the beach. I'm gonna do this from the beach. We'll see.
All right, everybody. Good early Shabbos, happy Hanukkah, and see you all soon.
Bye.
Thank you.